And now we can listen in to the governor.
Mr. Sweat went down, help arrived, and Mr. Sweat is now in a hospital in stable condition. This happened a mile and a half from the Canadian border in the town of Constable. I had the chance to speak with Sergeant Cook and congratulate him on his great police work. He was alone when this happened. Sergeant Cook happens to be from Troop B, which is this area, so he knew the area very well. But he was still alone, and it was a very courageous act. I said to Sergeant Cook, who has two daughters, 16 and 17, I said, well, you go home tonight and tell your daughters that you're a hero. With teenage girls, that'll probably last a good 24 hours, and then you'll just go back to being a regular dad, as I well know. This was an extraordinary situation in many ways. The prison at Dannemora is over 100 years old. This is the first escape in 100 years. And if you were writing a movie plot, they would say that this was overdone. You had hacksaws delivered by a facilitator in ground-up meat. You had two prisoners who were on the honor block. They hacksawed through the back of their cell. They got into the catwalks. The catwalks took them into a labyrinth of tunnels where they came across a contractor's job box, large toolbox. One of the prisoners was a burglar, knew how to pick the lock repeatedly. They used those tools then to do the work of breaking the wall, cutting the pipe, cutting the chains, and making way to the sewer pipe. It was an extraordinary circumstance. And the first escape in over 100 years, but one escape is one escape too many. We will have the ongoing investigation to find out exactly who was involved. We have two people who have been arrested for facilitation or accomplices in this situation, but the investigation's not over. Now that we have Mr. Sweat, it gives us the opportunity to have some more questions and provide more facts on the overall situation. Anyone who we find who was culpable and guilty of cooperating in this escape will be fully prosecuted. The DAs have done a great job of both Franklin and Clinton County, and I want to thank them. But we will prosecute them to the full extent of the law. If anyone else was involved, we will find that. We will also be conducting an investigation into the systems in that prison. And how could this happen, and how did they have access to the catwalk, etc. So there are a lot of questions to be answered, and we already started a full investigation that's being headed by the Inspector General of the state of New York. But today ends with good news. These were really dangerous, dangerous men, both Matt and Sweat. They were killers. Mr. Matt killed at least two people. Mr. Sweat killed a sheriff's deputy in Broome County in a savage, savage way. So these were dangerous people. We could not tolerate them being on the loose. The terrain was very difficult. This prison happens to be located in a heavily forested area, so it was an extraordinarily difficult road to hoe, so to speak. And this was an unprecedented coming together of law enforcement on every level. We had local law enforcement, we had federal law enforcement, state assets, all working together, hand in glove, with gears meshing. And I would just want to thank the Department of Corrections SORT team, headed by Colonel Bradford, the New York State Encon Police, headed by Captain Chafia, the Forest Rangers, the FBI, which did an outstanding job. I spoke on the phone to Agent Vale, and Agent Tim Dunham is with us today, and we want to thank them. The U.S. Marshals, the Clinton County Sheriff's Office, the Clinton County DA, the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Franklin County District Attorney's Office, Plattsburgh Police, Vermont State Police, Governor Peter Shumlin, who was extraordinarily cooperative, visited the prison, brought Vermont assets to work hand in glove with New York, the DHSES, Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which did an outstanding job in apprehending Mr. Matt 2 days ago, Washington County Sheriff's Office, and the St. Regis Mohawk tribal assets. We want to thank them all very much. And last but not least, I want to thank the people of the state of New York who were, as usual, stepped up to the challenge. People in Franklin County, Clinton County, they had all sorts of leads. They were on the lookout. Law enforcement didn't end here. Every citizen did their job, and they did it bravely, and they did it courageously, and they dealt with the increased police presence and the fear, frankly, of having to go 3 weeks knowing that there were murderers loose in your backyards. But New Yorkers are tough, and they stepped right up. They stepped up to the challenge. They provided help, and they stood with us every step of the way. And I want to thank the people of Franklin and Clinton County personally for their courage, and every law enforcement officer. Literally thousands of law enforcement officers were engaged in this, and it's nice when it ends well. And we said that we're going to have a celebration at the appropriate time, but that everyone goes home safe, and the escapees have been dealt with. You couldn't have a better ending. We wish it didn't happen in the first place, but if you have to have it happen, this is the way you want it to end. Another round of applause for the men and women of law enforcement. And now I turn you over to Superintendent Joseph D'Amico, who runs the New York State Police. Superintendent.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. I'll give you the facts that I know, but I just caution that the shooting investigation into the apprehension of David Sweat is ongoing. So I'll give you whatever I do know, though. At about 3:20 today, Sergeant Jay Cook, who's assigned to Troop B, spent most of his career right here in SP Malone, a 21-year veteran, was on patrol. He was supervising perimeter posts up in the area in our continued ground search. As he was driving down the road, he spotted a male who was basically jogging up along the side of the road. He approached him, and as he exited the car, the male turned to him. He says, "Hey, come over here." The male kind of ignored him. He called out to him again, at which time the male turned around, kind of like, you know, what do you want from me? And he recognized him to be David Sweat. And at that time, Sweat turned and fled on foot with the sergeant in pursuit. At some point running across the field, he realized that Sweat was going to make it to a tree line and possibly could have disappeared, and he fired 2 shots from his service weapon, his handgun, hitting Sweat twice in the torso. Local EMS team responded and treated Sweat on the scene. He was airlifted to Alice Hyde Hospital, and he's in stable condition, and I would expect that he's going to be moved to one of the trauma centers for further treatment. We've been in the area, as I told you on Friday. We started up at the northern border near the Canadian border. This event took place about 1.5 miles from the Canadian border. Our concern was that they could have made it to the border, and we were pushing southward from the border. And I think that it was effective today, being in the right area. Where Sweat was, I can only assume he was going for the border, that he was that close. And we couldn't be happier that we were able to apprehend him and not lose him. It's been a long 3 weeks. We had done some investigation of the Matt shooting and found there was a camp that we located where we thought maybe they bed down up in the area of Route 41 in Malone. And we were able to obtain some DNA off discarded material there that came back to David Sweat. It was picnic-style pepper shakers, and we believe that possibly these 2 males were using pepper to throw the scent off for the dogs who were tracking him. And we did have difficulty tracking, so, you know, it was fairly effective in that respect. So I just want to echo the words of the governor, thank my law enforcement partners, tremendous effort. You know, I've seen them out here over the last 3 weeks in the fields, 24 hours a day, in the rain, in the cold, in the swamps, in the woods, a tremendous effort by all of our partners in law enforcement. I also want to single out our on-scene commander, Major Charles Guest, who's been the face of the state police over the last 3 weeks. Tremendous leader. He has really done a phenomenal job over the last 3 weeks, leading our ground troops and coordinating with our BCI, our investigator sides. You know, we tracked down over 2,500 leads coming in from the community. We appreciate the partnership that we receive from all of the community members. It's a team effort. It's law enforcement and the community working together. I think that was effective here. Again, I said it the other day, I appreciate the support that everyone's shown us and the patience that they've had. Hopefully now everybody's life could get back to normal. But at this time, I guess we'd be willing to take questions.
Superintendent, Mr. Sweat was captured well north, it seems, of the search area, the heart of it. And I was told that you guys were hammering that area over the last day or two. So can you tell us what led you to suspect that he might be so far north?
Well, you know, at the time when we located Matt, we were already searching from basically the Canadian border southward. We had moved our deployment sometime around last Thursday. After the burglary, we figured we'd go further north and try to push down in the event they might be going for Canada. This was right in that search area. It was approximately 16 miles north of where Matt was shot and killed.
So, Superintendent, was Sweat armed, and with what? And are the nature of his injuries to the extent that he wouldn't be able to speak and talk with authorities? Has he said anything either to the officer, the sergeant before getting shot, and after, since being taken into custody?
Well, his injuries, he was shot twice in the torso and he's considered in stable condition. He hasn't been interviewed by our investigators. Obviously, we're looking to interview him. There's a lot of blank spaces between the time they left Dannemora prison 3 weeks ago and when they were apprehended, and we would like to fill in some of those spaces. And I'm guessing at some point, you know, we'll be able to do some of that.
Well, was he armed, and was he armed?
He wasn't armed at the time he was apprehended, no.
Superintendent, can you confirm that 3 team members saw him, had an interaction with him, called him a tip, and then that led it to the sergeant finding him? Is that how that went down?
Not today. Today it was routine patrol by the sergeant who spotted him on the side of the road, and some good heads-up police work by the sergeant, very alert. He was by himself, supervising perimeter posts as a sergeant. He approached him. He did an excellent job. I think he did a very courageous and brave act of policing, and as the governor said, we've commended him, and I couldn't be prouder of him.
Superintendent has a 22-mile radius lockdown pretty tight yesterday. How did Sweat get so far from that area into Constable? How did he get up that way?
You know, you've been around here for the last 3 weeks like we have. The terrain is so dense, you can't see 5 feet in front of you. So, I mean, if you stayed in the tree line, you know, use something as a guide to whether it was a road or a rail bed or anything else, you know, you could make your way. In this case, like I said, if you stayed in the tree line, you wouldn't have been able to see him from the road. So it's not impossible.
Were there standing orders to the 1,300 or so law enforcement here that if Sweat was spotted and he didn't surrender, to shoot him as opposed to letting him run away?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, our intention, you know, as law enforcement was to bring him in without having to use force. You know, sometimes, as in the case of Matt, you know, where he was armed and he presented a threat, sometimes force is necessary. It's a dangerous job that our law enforcement officers do. And in the case today of Sweat, I mean, if Sweat made the tree line and would have been gone, you know, who knows what kind of damage. You know, it's kind of, I'm just thankful 3 weeks, no innocent civilians, no innocent law enforcement were hurt.
Superintendent, is there any indication that they were together, close by each other, at least Friday, when Matt was shot, or did they split up at some point?
Well, obviously, you know, since they escaped, there was a time when they were together, and there was a time when they split apart. You know, when was it? I couldn't say for sure, other than the fact that Sweat's DNA was recovered in the area of that County Route 41 burglary. So, you know, it's due north from there. Very possible.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. One more round of applause for our partners who are all here, and for the New York State Police. Thank you.
We've been listening to the Superintendent of New York State Police and Governor Cuomo holding a press conference in Malone, New York on the capture of inmate David Sweat, who was shot twice by a state trooper this afternoon in Constable, New York. Sweat is now in the hospital in stable condition. No law enforcement officers were hurt during this capture. And this comes 2 days after the killing of fellow escaped inmate Richard Matt, who was shot 3 times during a confrontation in the woods. They escaped from a maximum security state prison in upstate New York 3 weeks ago, and today the hunt is over. We'll have much more on the end to this manhunt tonight at 9 o'clock on WLNY-TV 1055 and on Channel 2 News after CSI. We now return to regular programming.
This has been Breaking News.